Call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Otter, calling the roll, please.
Mr. Thacker.
Present.
Mr. Norris.
Here.
Ms. Thies.
Here.
Ms. Swager.
Here.
Ms. Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Otter. We have before us information for the previous meetings. First up, the October 5th, 2021 Sunshine Meeting. This is in your packet of information. If you have not already done so, please review that and note any corrections or amendments that need to be made. If the meeting minutes are correct, I'd entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Motion on the floor to approve by Councilman Thompson, second by Councilman Wilson. Any thoughts or discussion? There are none. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker.
Aye.
Mr. Norris.
Aye.
Ms. Thies.
Aye.
Swager.
Aye.
Ms. Wilson. Mr. Thompson.
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Next, we have the October 12th, 2021 meeting. Again, please review for accurate details, and if there's any omissions or any corrections that need to be made, please state such at this time. If everything appears to be correct, I would entertain a motion to approve as presented. So moved. Motion to approve by Councilman Thacker.
Second.
Second by Councilman Norris. Any thoughts or discussion? Here's our none. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker.
Aye.
Mr. Norris.
Aye.
Ms. Thies.
Aye.
Ms. Swager.
Aye.
Ms. Wilson.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye, motion carries. And last for the meeting minutes is the October 18th, 2021 continuation of the October 12th meeting. Again, please review, note any corrections or any omissions that need to be addressed at this time. If everything appears to be accurate, I would entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Motion on the floor by Councilman Thompson,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Thies. Any thoughts? Here's there are none. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker.
Aye.
Mr. Norris.
Aye.
Ms. Thies.
Aye.
Swager.
Aye.
Ms. Wilson.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson.
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on. We'll move on to public comments. Comments and communications are limited to items not on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak at this time? It appears there is not. Next, we'll move on to communications from elected officials, other officials, or agencies of the county. I believe Commissioner Kearns had an update he'd like to provide.
President Loudermilk, appreciate it. Commissioner Brendan Kearns, I wanted to give an update on what we call the GEERS, G-E-E-R-S project. That's the broadband project that we were working on pretty hard last year. With the council's support, I think it was December 2020, we allocated $2.8 million plus or minus to help get broadband out into the county. The program's going really well. I know there's been some questions about timelines and stuff, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to give you a quick update as to where we are. For the new council members, our focus when the school corporation approached us was to get high-speed internet available to students so that if they do have to be out of school, they have a place to go to use the internet if they don't have it at home. And we looked at 44 locations without the county, focusing on firehouses, community centers, parks, and just places that people would commonly congregate within the county. There's also a city component. What we're focused on here this evening is the county component. So I feel it's best to have Josh Warner with Joint come up and give a quick overview, if that's okay with you, President Loudermilk.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. The county portion of the project was 44 sites, and of those sites, we have completed the main line construction to 89. We're 89% complete on the main line construction, so that's the placement of joint conduit and fiber in county rights-of-way headed towards those locations. There are 3 locations that still require mainline construction, and that work is in progress this week and next week. The most significant outstanding approvals are simply the county parks, where we're still finalizing the exact placement and design in those park locations, and we expect to have that completed next week. The biggest source of delay is, unfortunately, the electronics that go on the very end of the connection. Those electronics are manufactured using components that are very common electrical components, but unfortunately are in short supply. We had expected as recently as last Wednesday for those access points to ship last Friday. We'd been anxiously awaiting for their shipment, and the manufacturer rescheduled that shipment to February. Those access points are what is compatible with the school corporation's Wi-Fi solution, and we're working with executives at the manufacturer to try to get a partial shipment, but it is the same problem that is plaguing so many aspects of the supply chain right now. So Joint has done everything we can do in terms of construction, fiber cabling, splicing. We're getting everything ready that when those access points, when those electronics show up, we can install them on the very end and make the service available to the school corporation and their constituents. One important thing I wanted to mention is that Joint had not officially extended service to single-family homes along Joint's route until this body asked us to. And so part of the conversation in December of last year was if Joint would provide service to people passed along the routes, and we agreed to do that in this same public forum. And I'm pleased to announce that well over 100 residents now have ordered service along Joint's routes that have been constructed, and that is fiber all the way to their home. And I would be remiss if I didn't share with you tonight that Joint has entered an agreement and made an announcement just in the half hour before I came over that we've attracted the interest of one of the largest infrastructure funds in the world, and they will make continued investments in Joint that will help us continue to increase our investment in West Central Indiana and to extend our network to more and more homes. So I'm really delighted to be able to make that announcement, and I'm very excited for what's happening in West Central Indiana. This has been a really good day, really big day for our community in terms of how we're going to be able to continue to expand our fiber network. So I covered a lot of ground in not much time there, but Gears project is on track. We'll try to find electronics, and Joint is continuing to make good on its commitment to extend this network to the community.
So with what you just stated here at
Sure.
the end, I mean,
Sure.
what do you anticipate that's going to do for West Central Indiana moving forward? What kind of impact will that have?
Joint's objective is to continue to extend its fiber network deeper and deeper into the homes in this community. So it's still a situation where the lowest density homes that are typically 25 homes a route mile and less, the economics still don't work for those homes, and we will be pursuing grant funds. We're very fortunate to be doing business in the state of Indiana, the Indiana's Next Level Connects program. Joint received 7 awards in the last round, and we currently have letters of intent filed in this round. It's round 3 to obtain grant funds to serve those homes that are in very low densities. And we're eager to do that. But essentially, it allows me to stand before you today with a certain degree of confidence that we're going to be able to continue to grow our business, hire people, make capital investments in equipment and tools, and continue to substantially expand our fiber optic network in this community and in the surrounding communities.
Sounds great.
Sure.
Councilman Wilson?
Sure.
I do intend to get with you again because I do want to tour your facility.
Sure.
I'm hoping, my district is Southwest Vigo County,
Yes.
and we're one of the, probably the lower density areas that I've got constituents that ask me all the time what
Sure.
we could do. So I'm on their behalf as well as my own personal behalf. I'd like
Sure.
to ask that question, if they're part of your plan.
Sure. So I can't speak to just super specific parts of,
Sure.
of the county, but we filed a letter of intent. Well, a couple of things. First of all, we've expanded our fiber network into that part of the county as a result of your investment underneath the GEARS program. So we're getting access to students to where they're within walking or a very short driving distance to be able to get online. That was kind of step 1.
Is that like Prairie Creek Park?
Yes, that's correct. All county parks, including Prairie Creek Park. We also are pursuing all potential grant subsidies to service all eligible homes. So the state of Indiana has specifically identified which homes are eligible for support underneath the Next Level Connects program, and we filed a letter of intent to service all of those eligible homes. The economics don't work for JOINC to service all eligible homes, even with state money, and so there may still be a request for additional local matching dollars to maximize Vigo County's ability to win in this next round of Next Level Connects. But no one will work harder than we are working, as evidenced by the press release that was just issued. Then we will work to try to get every home served in West Central Indiana, and that's our goal.
I believe that and I appreciate it. Thank
Sure.
you.
Sure.
Councilman Thacker?
Could you share with us the speed for upload and download that you're providing on this fiber network?
Sure. Specific to the GEARS project,
Yes,
where
this GEARS project.
I'll answer both.
Okay.
Specific to the GEARS project, these access points, I believe, are provisioned with a 500 megabit by 500 megabit connection back to the school corporation's data center. I'm a little bit rusty on that. If you give me just 1 second. It's essentially the same speed of service that exists to a school corporation student inside the school corporation. So the student will enjoy the exact same Wi-Fi experience at any of these locations that they experience in the classroom.
Even with loading?
I'm sorry.
Even with loading issues? Yeah. Well, sometimes it's whenever everybody in the neighborhood's on it, then the speed goes down.
Oh, yeah, no, the way this service is provisioned, it's not subject to that. So,
Okay.
this is not a shared bandwidth configuration.
Okay.
The limitation will be the wireless card in the Chromebook before it is the connection to the access point. So a student can go sit in a park shelter or at one of these firehouse locations and get online and enjoy the exact same experience they would have in a classroom setting. In terms of the service levels that JOINC is offering to residential customers on our fiber network, today those speeds are up to 1 gigabit by 1 gigabit, so 1,000 megabits by 1,000 megabits.
And did the follow-up is, can you give us the name of the infrastructure or investment
Yes,
company?
it's DIF, D-I-F. DIF Infrastructure Partners is the firm that is partnering with JOINC in our next phase of growth.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Thacker, to kind of expand on what Josh said relative to your question, we look at Blackhawk, for example, the Blackhawk-Lewis area, the southeast part of the county. Nobody was going to touch it. There was a ring, as Josh has explained before in other meetings, around Vigo County. in order for us to get internet service out to the Black Hawk Lewis area, we were trying to do the math. Is 500,000 safe? It's about a $500,000 investment. When you look at how many houses are out there, nobody would touch this. And it's the same thing out in your area, where internet companies were just simply not going to go there. There is a private company that met with us, Spectrum, about their initiative, and they're spending about $14,000 per house, but they're being funded by the federal government. So without the council moving forward with this project with the school corporation, internet would not go to those rural areas. And Councilwoman Wilson, you guys would be, it'd be dark out there. So this project, you know, it got to the public locations, the 44 locations for people to go to, but the most important thing is it paid for the lines to get out there. And I'll make copies of this for you because none of you probably have the agreement except for maybe Aaron, David, and Vicky. I'll make sure all of you have copies of the agreement so that you see all the locations where this is going to.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for that response.
Councilwoman Fees?
I just have a quick question on logistics, since I work with students in that way in case,
Sure.
you know, to know it. So if they go to one of these sites, okay, is it just open access? Or is it set up specifically with the Vigo County Schools? Can anyone get on it? I guess that's what I'm asking.
These access points are hanging off of the school corporation's wireless LAN controller, so that the wireless networks that are made available in the schools, I presume, are the same wireless networks that will be made available in these locations.
So if their Chromebook is, you know, working at the school and hooked up to the system,
Oh,
it
that is
scans?
certain.
Okay.
So any policy changes, they will have the exact same experience they would have in a Vigo County School
Okay.
Corporation facility. It is open the Chromebook and get to work activity for a
Okay.
student, yes.
And then for the public, if they are, you know, I'm just thinking about, again, like when we've had situations where we had, you know, people having to work at home too, is that something they can access to at these points, or is it more geared for the students?
I believe the school corporation makes a guest network available throughout the corporation. I expect that
That'd be
guest
the
network
same
will be
thing.
made available in these locations as well, but that is a
Since
school
it's more-
corporation-specific
Okay.
question. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else from the council? Thank you, Mr. Zwar. Appreciate it.
We'll continue to keep you updated and keep your fingers crossed for capacitors and chips to become more readily available.
Will do. Great work. Thank you. Any other communications from elected officials?
Hello. How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
Thank you, President Lauer, for allowing me to speak. I'm new, so I apologize if I ask a lot of questions, but from my understanding, the coroner's salary is up for debate tonight?
All salaries are, yes.
All salaries, okay. The reason why I basically wanted to speak, because from my understanding, I know that the Budget Committee of Tad, Marie, and Vicky has reached out to my office and just asked questions to figure out what the coroner does. But from my understanding, it's all with the group, and so I reached out to a couple other people just to ask them if they want to have some questions or come by the office. And Donna, has anybody came by the office besides the Budget Committee? No. So my role here tonight is just to educate you on exactly what the coroner does, because the job description says the cause and manner of death, but it doesn't really tell you what that actually does and how I actually do the job. And I can tell you for a fact, it's a lot more intensive than I thought. I work 365 days a year. I don't get vacation time, and 24 hours, so I get called at sometimes 2 in the morning. And Curtis, when we go out to a scene, how long are we there at the scene sometimes? Hour and a half, and that's just to process the body. So my role is, is the cause and manner of death. And I do that by a couple different things. It is a coordination of care between the living and the dead. We get called very often, And I do speak to quite a few families that need to know their death certificates and things and how long things take in that aspect. As well, I have coordination between the Sheriff's Department as well as the Terre Haute PD Department, as well as the Indiana State Department. So it is pretty intensive, and from my understanding, that's why I'm asking, is there any other government official that works 365 days a year? I'm just asking, because I don't know.
Rob Roberts is raising his hand behind you.
Correct. Do you have paid time off? Do you have paid time off, like vacation time? None? Okay. I'm pretty sure the base salary of a coroner is $25,000 a year. Yours a little higher than that? Okay, okay. So that being said, it is one of the few jobs where you work 365 days. I don't leave at 4 o'clock and turn off my phone and things of that nature. It is one of those positions. So I wanted to, since no one else but the Budget Committee has reached out to the office to figure out exactly what I do, I just want to give y'all the chance, the people that are not part of the Budget Committee, to ask the questions so you kind of know. Because from my understanding, a lot of people still think a coroner does the autopsies. No, if you're forensic pathologist, you do the autopsy, and that was something that they had, from my understanding, had to subsidize Dr. Core because he couldn't get paid as a forensic pathologist if he was a coroner, from my understanding, because you can't get double dibs. You can't get paid for doing something on the side versus being a coroner. So they did something to try to figure that out and things of that nature. And then also, from my understanding, the coroner's base salary is, I think, I'm looking down at notes, $25,130. And as a physician, because we have medical knowledge and we're able to do things, it's raised a little bit higher. I think it's $37,665. Donna, who is my trusted secretary that does a lot, as well as the whole team. We have a team of 5, I don't know if you know that, we have a team of 5 people. We have 5 people for this county of 100,000 people. And so far this year, I have signed 190 death certificates. And that's not all the people that died in the county. That's just me signing the death certificates. And I think last year, 261. And out of those 190 death certificates that I have signed, only 155 of them have required autopsies, because I've used my medical knowledge by going to the scene, because Rob, you've seen me out there a couple times asking questions and things of that nature, as well as going to the scene, asking questions, looking at going over the medications, talking to the family, try to figure out if they actually need to have an autopsy. I'm pretty sure y'all don't know how much an autopsy costs and how much that whole process is. So an autopsy, the whole process, not including, well, it includes the transportation fees, cost the county anywhere from $2,100 per person. Okay, so that includes the lab fees, that as well as includes the forensic pathology fees, as well as the transportation fees. So out of those 190 people that have death certificates that I've done this year already, only 155 have got autopsies. So 35 of them, using my medical knowledge, I have decided that they did not need to be autopsies, saving the county, is it almost $70,000 this year already. Okay, I'm pretty sure y'all have some questions about what the coroner role is and how I do things. So I'm gonna open it up to people who have questions.
Any questions from council?
If nobody else has a question, I'd like to make a statement.
Councilman Thacker?
Thank you. I did reach out to you, and I did have some questions on it, and I've learned a little bit. And my attempt when I was on the Budget Committee was try to get it up to the coroner's pay up to par to the counties that we were compared to in the last study, compensation study. So that was my attempt. It did not pass, but I do empathize with you. I'm glad to see you here to state your position. And I'll continue.
Just education, yeah, because I think people just don't know.
And I will continue to try to help you in that effort too, as far as I do think that job is an important job. I think a lot of places consider it the second highest office in the county.
It is the second highest And the
And,
lowest
so-
paying one so far, from my understanding.
Oh, well, we make a little less, but,
Oh,
but,
sorry.
I mean, we don't work 365.
Yeah,
So,
I gotta change
but,
that.
I just want to thank you for your attendance here and education process.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman Norris?
Dr. Myers, do you have assistant deputies, or is that correct, that go out and do the job also?
Yes.
On that 365?
Yes.
Okay. How many times do they take those calls versus you? Do you have like a log, or do you have
They
any
call me for
idea?
each and every call.
Okay.
I'm that anal. I
But-
want to make sure, I understand what you're saying. I want to make sure that I do not miss anything. I don't want somebody to be, it's a natural cause when someone's a homicide call. So do they go out each and every time and give me a report? Yes. Do sometimes they're like, okay, you need to go out too as well? I do go out there too as well. And that's why and I go to, besides going out there, I do go to autopsies, and I'm pretty sure, Curtis will tell you, I've been to a lot of, I would probably say about, 30 or 50 autopsies? I was actually at one today, it wasn't even my county. So it's, yes, going out to the scene, but also it's not just about going out to the scene. You go to the autopsy to get more information. It is, the best for me to describe it is like surgery, which I am a surgeon. So when someone comes in with a belly pain, it's belly pain. You don't know exactly what caused the belly pain, do you? You have to do tests, you have to ask questions, you have to do the due diligence, because the bottom line of all of this is my name is on the line. I know I am a county official, and I will always do my best to help the county 100%, but my name is on that line each time I sign it. And you know what? If I do it wrong, if I put the wrong diagnosis on there, guess who's gonna be sitting there in a lawsuit with the lawyer when somebody's gonna be asking me questions like, why did you put this as a diagnosis?
Councilman Wager?
I guess one thing too, I might mention that over these last 32 years, we became very accustomed to having Dr. Core around as somebody we depended on.
He's retired.
Well, that's what I was going to mention. August the 13th, he retired, so.
Oh, yeah. Otherwise, he'd be standing here,
he
because
would be
Cora
right-
Cora is the one that actually, I wouldn't say sponsored me, he talked to me. Basically, he was the one that's first, look, I was never one to say I wanted to run for elective office, not at all, but
Maybe persuaded you to consider it.
I turned him down a couple times, but
Yeah.
yes, he asked, he's like, why don't you think about this? And I said, yeah, and so, no, if Dr. Core was interested ever of coming back to this role or this position, I would not be here today.
Well, I assure you, he's not. I did.
Oh, I
talk to him.
know for a fact he's retiring, he's loving
Yeah.
life, because Jane is very happy right now with him at
Yeah.
home, been trying to get him to retire for years.
Yeah.
But that's the reason why I'm physically here, and I can tell you, knowing what I saw in the job description and knowing exactly what I do each and every day is not exactly true, and I'm pretty sure most people have been to a job before, seeing a job description, and know that once they get in, it's a lot more than what they think it is.
Yep. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions or comments from council?
I can ask.
Councilman Thies?
And I guess this is just a question in general. As we are approaching the study, is this something that will be addressed as well? Because in reaching out to Dr. Meyer, something that I had talked about was the history of the position and how the pay seemed like part-time, but in talking to her,
You actually thought it was part-time
yeah,
because the pay
and
was so low.
To see, in talking about the duties and the responsibilities of what she's done, it seems like there's just a disconnect. And again, I don't know a lot of the history of it, but in learning about the hours and things, it definitely caused me to kind of question some things. And so I guess one of the questions I would ask is, in looking at counties around us and with that size, are the positions considered in the same way? Like where it is what would be quote unquote like a part-time coroner or anything that we've had history-wise? Like with the numbers, you mentioned 190 death certificates, or most of the counties have
And-
compensation that's higher.
I know that the Budget Committee did their due diligence because a lot of y'all reached out to me and a lot of y'all actually looked at other counties, and I actually tried to look at, because I'm not going to ask you for something I don't think is reasonable. I'm a reasonable girl. I'm very logical. If I'm doing the work, I expect to get reasonable pay. But the bottom line of it is, when I looked at the other counties, when I actually went to the Coroners Association and asked for the book and so I could see, so when you look there, it's not about the population, because the population, there are counties that are 100,000 people making anywhere from, I can pull it up real quick, but it's anywhere like from $25,000 to $50,000. But there's also counties, $5,000 where the coroner makes $57,000. I'm like, what county is this? But I don't know how they come up with these numbers at all, and I appreciate the due diligence that y'all are doing, because it's not easy. Because you can't really go by population. You can go by, I guess, how many deaths I do, but then you have to put it all together in perspective. I mean, when I look at it, I'm just like, I don't know how much does secretary make here? How much? What is it, the role? Does anybody know? The secretary, recorder, anybody?
Recorder's 56,000.
60,000?
56.
56? Any one of them, I'm just giving a range. So $56,000 for the secretary recorder, where you have the base pay for the coroner being $25,000. So I don't know how that started. I don't know the history. Again, as I said in the beginning, I am new. I'm just asking questions, but I want to make sure that y'all, and I'm just putting it in the most southern terms, understand exactly what I physically do each and every day, 365 days, 24, because they will call me, and they do call me, and I have to give my medical opinion about things, and I do go out to scenes when it just does not look right. And we've had, and I'm pretty sure y'all are all aware, because of COVID, because of the quarantine, there's a lot of mental health issues out there, and there's, I think I saw some cops here. It has been a lot of harder crimes than there used to be, and people are doing things that they probably wouldn't have done a couple years ago. Yes,
Councilor
sir.
Norris?
Did I just recently see your name on another medical facility on Spring Hill?
Yes, I'm a surgeon.
Okay. I just wanted to say congratulations. I thought I'd saw that. So I guess when I saw that, I was surprised that you talk about 365 days a year and 24 hours a day and still opening a new office and stuff like that. So I just want to say congratulations, because you're obviously putting a bunch of hours in. So
Yeah, so so you probably don't know. I've been a surgeon here since April 2019, and I was part of regional health, where I was employed physician. I'm now in private practice. So yeah, I'm hustling because private practice does a lot of stuff. So they're.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Myers.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate y'all.
Thank you. Any other communications from elected officials or other officials of the county? Moving on, reports from committees. There are none. Ordinances relating to appropriations. First up, we have final resolution 2021-20, ROC 2021-052, declaratory resolution for the designation of an economic revitalization area, an application of Great Dane LLC. That's a mouthful.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, no kidding. I think we had some representatives from Great Dane here last week. They're here again tonight to, I'm sure they will address any concerns or any questions you may have. They said they were here last week. I think, was Mr. Johnson? Yes, he gave a pretty good overview of what the operations look like and what their expectations were moving forward in terms of consolidation of other operations elsewhere and the rehabilitation of their current building that's not being used. So with that, open the floor to the council to ask any questions or make any comments they have. Councilwoman Thies.
In looking at the abatement and seeing like what's laid out here, it just looks like, and I guess it could be for all of you and as well as the representatives, this looks like a more standard 10-year tax abatement, where each year it goes down by 10%, just so those listening and those in the audience can tell. And
Yes,
this
it's
is pretty
more-
typical,
yeah,
I
it's
guess is
the,
what I'm asking.
It's essentially the traditional 10-year graduating
Okay.
scale of 10% each year. Much different than what we had seen here recently, but yes, this is just the kind of the
Standard.
very vanilla standard abatement request
Okay.
in terms of graduating scale. Councilman Thacker?
So I just want to reiterate my concern that I stated after we passed the last one with Steel Dynamics. I would like to have seen us have in place a scoring system prior to it. I realize this is just for the resolution for designating it as an economic development. I don't have an issue with that. I was just hoping that we could get something in place to do that. I understand the conversation. I reached out to Mr. Johnson and Mr. Witt have been very helpful. And I understand this process had been, these conversations had been going on prior to even Steel Dynamics. But I would just like to reiterate that as a council member, I'd like to see us have a set place scoring system. And it has no reflection on Great Dane whatsoever. It's just the processes I would like for us as a council to do, just so that we can be consistent and fair in our evaluations. But I do believe this is as I said, a pretty vanilla, and I don't have an issue with it. And I did have a reiteration of more a conversation about using local people on the construction. I think that's very key to it as much as it is the 125 jobs it creates. And so I'm excited about more investment into the community. So, thank you.
Thank you. If you'll recall, Councilman Thacker, I think it was last week, Councilwoman Thies had spoke on that, and she has been working to create a finished product in conjunction with Steve Witt and some others. She's working on a scoring system right now and has been for several weeks. Is
So
that fair to
the
say?
hope is to bring it in front of council by January, since we're not meeting in December. So I've got to reach out to, hopefully reach out to some of the city partners too, so we have something very streamlined for the county. But I think we should be able to get it done by the beginning of next year. I don't think it'd be a problem.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? Questions from council? If there are none, I'd entertain a motion at this time. Councilman Wilson?
I move to approve the final resolution 2021-20 ROC 2021-052 declaratory resolution for the designation of the economic revitalization area on the application of Great Dane LLC.
Motion on the floor to approve by Councilman Wilson.
A second.
Second by Councilman Thompson. Any thoughts or discussion? Appears to be none. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Thies,
Aye.
Ms. Wager,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on. We have additional appropriation 2021-26, ROC 2021-47, non-reverting juvenile justice care prisoners fund. We also heard this last week. Any comments or questions from council?
Just one quick one.
Councilman Wilson?
As I understood what you asked last week, you're wanting the building repair to deal with the ceiling in it. Because I know there was some discussion as to whether you had brought that up in the past and whether you hadn't. I think you, from everything that I could gather, you discussed it in the past, but never actually officially asked for the money for it, and that's what you're asking for now. Is that correct?
Yes, May 4th and May the 11th, I both discussed it. And then, for whatever reason, the contractors just didn't get back with me until the end of the year. I missed the deadline for the October meeting by a couple of days, so that's why you're seeing it in November.
So, but you never officially asked till now, so that's, I just wanted to clear that up.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? If there's nothing else, entertain a motion. Councilman Thacker?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to accept to allow the additional appropriation of 2021-26 ROC 2021-47 non-reverting juvenile justice care of prisoners fund.
Motion on the floor by Councilman Thacker, second by Councilwoman Wager. Any questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Thies,
Aye.
Ms. Wager, Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, additional appropriation, 2021-27 ROC 2021-48 Highway. We'll go ahead and do also, while Mr. Robbins is at the podium, 2021-28 ROC 2021-49 Cume Bridge.
Correct. I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions? It was pretty smooth last week.
Question
Councilwoman
has
Wilson?
Nothing to do with this. How much longer?
Tomorrow, actually, they're going to cut the wires, so
I was gonna say, I wanted to see a big smile. No, I'm kidding.
celebrating.
That's what I was gonna mean. Okay. Thanks.
There's nothing further. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the additional appropriation ordinance 2021-27. We need to make it separate.
Yes. Motion approved by Councilman
Second.
Thompson, second by Councilman Wilson. Any discussion? There's none. Roll call vote.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Thies,
Aye.
Ms. Wager, Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye, motion carries. Additional appropriation 2021-28 ROC 2021-49 Cume Bridge. Entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's approved by Councilman Thompson, second by Councilman Wilson. Any discussion? There's none. Roll call vote.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Thies,
Aye.
Ms. Wager, Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Next up, additional appropriation 2021-29 ROC 2021-50 lit special purpose. Everybody understands what that is? Okay. Any thoughts? Councilman Wilson?
I would like to ask, I would like to know why the transfer wasn't done in 2020 that allowed the original appropriation to die that brings us to this point of asking for an additional appropriation for the $5 million, why it wasn't transferred to the Terrell First account.
There wasn't a claim submitted by the trustee for the commissioners, and it just, we don't have the paperwork to do it, it doesn't get done.
So it's the trustee for the commissioners'
The-
responsibility?
At the bank, we should have got some notification from them, I would have thought.
And knowing that it should have been done, it wasn't necessary for anybody to ask them for the paperwork? And so my understanding of the whole situation is this could potentially cause us to be short on the construction fees because the money's sitting in lit and not sitting in the account that pays the bills. and that's on the trustee at the bank, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I'd say that's the place where the notification would come from, that they need to transfer.
Okay.
Any other thoughts or questions for council?
Is that the same situation for 2021? There hasn't been anything from the trustee notifying you that you need to transfer the money to 2021 because its appropriation is active on it as well?
Right.
Okay.
Anything further? I'd offer this time for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve?
Yes.
Motion to approve by Councilman Thompson, second by Councilman Wilson. Comments or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Steves,
Aye.
Swigger, Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye, motion carries. Next, we have resolution of reallocation of existing appropriation 2021-19 ROC 2021-51, Vigo County Council.
I think my comments probably should have related to this one rather than the previous one, but my question was answered.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that on this end. Could you, you got your
My
mic on?
question to the auditor actually should have pertained to this particular one, not the previous one, but my question was answered.
Oh, okay.
I was the right one, okay.
Previous.
I'm sorry. Rewind.
So this is what we'd previously talked about, page 15 of your booklet, the resolution information,
Oh,
and this is a reallocation request from the Coronavirus Relief Fund to cover payroll, FICA, and PERF, as it would be related to any potential bonus for full-time employees. You should have information before you. And an insert, and it should be the same insert that was circulated last Tuesday, the top Vigo County bonus calculations, date 11/2/2021. Does everyone have that? You have two tables there. One was roughly at the time for the maximum amount of full-time employees as of last Tuesday, which would have been 550, and another one was a calculation of current full-time employees that were employed at that date since at least December 31st of last year. And that table shows calculations for 483 full-time employees. Each table has breakdowns in $50 increments from 1,000 to 1,500 to include FICA and PERF as well, and then a total at the bottom. Any questions about that insert, that attachment?
Was the Kara going to provide additional information for the numbers?
I'm sure she's available to if we need her to, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, as we spoke about last week, the 550 and the 483 were essentially the ceiling, right? And that ceiling allowed for us to be able to do these amounts. So anything, any number that would change would be less than the 550 or the 483. And I think Melissa Miller just said it Kara had worked and determined that 483 would be 475 as of now. So that'd be 475 full-time employees to date that have been employed continuously since at least December 31st of 2020.
Thanks, Kara.
Did you have anything you'd like to add, Kara? Or- Okay. Right, I just wanted to offer you the opportunity if you had something you wanted to add. Okay, thank you. So you have that information, you have a couple other inserts, there's some amendment language we had talked about last week that was just essentially a template to kind of look at the potential language that could be used in the situation. So with that said, I'd offer this time for discussion. Councilman Wilson?
One, just a minor question as far as changing the verbiage. In Section E, the attached job classification and compensation maintenance system is hereby adopted. All county council adopted job descriptions having a job requirement that states possession of a valid Indiana driver's license and a demonstrated safe driving record shall be amended to state possession of a valid driver's license and a demonstrated safe driving record. Is that essentially because?
Are you in a salary ordinance
I'm on the
right
salary
now?
ordinance.
We're not quite there yet.
Oh my goodness, I'm jumping ahead of everything here.
Yeah,
I
we're not.
apologize.
So we're in, section, numero 6. All right, so we're number 6 there.
Okay.
The resolution reallocation existing appropriation, that 2021-19, just above the 2022 salary ordinances there.
Okay.
So what this discussion is, so we'll get into the actual salary ordinances themselves after this, but what this is pertaining to is the bonus itself.
Okay.
If we want to do that, and if so, what that would look like. And the amendment page I was talking about was a single page, just a small paragraph, some highlights. Any thoughts? Comments? Questions? Concerns?
Yeah.
Questions?
Yeah, so if we can, are we going to fill in some of the blanks here, but part of that discussion that you brought up? I mean,
Yeah, I think there's a couple things we need to do here. I think we need to look and determine, look at the charts, determine what, have a discussion about what the bonus level should look like, and then have a discussion about what the eligibility requirement would be. And then, obviously, once we kind of hash out those details, then we can essentially fill in what we think is appropriate for the amendment for that. And that amendment would be, so I guess it is a couple parts. I mean, we're talking about this here. I think we need to approve that first.
I
And
agree.
then once we get through the 2022 salary ordinances, then we'll go down to the 2021 ordinance amendments for the general employees and the merit officers. I guess presumably, if we don't decide to do anything with this, then we don't have to go down at the bottom and do anything with the 2021 salary ordinance amendments, because there's nothing to amend essentially.
yeah,
That
and
makes sense.
yeah, I agree. That sounds like the process. I just wanted to comment on that. I was questioned by a couple of county employees and asked me the question, and I didn't have the answer for it. They asked, why did we talk with the department heads as we did with when we went through the budgeting, we talked to all the different department heads about their needs and wants and desires. And what they said is, I was informed that during the part of the COVID, when we had essential workers, that there were part-time workers here every day, or every day that they had available made to them. And it just seems, if the department heads had an input on it, should those people be compensated? Because they're not full-time, but they were deemed essential, and they worked every hour that they were offered. So they asked me that question. I didn't know the answer because I wasn't here one when they did that, and I wasn't involved in putting together this chart or this amendment. So I just didn't know if we could answer that for those individuals.
So I guess what is your question then? There's a lot there. I mean, what is the actual question?
So I can summarize it. So the question was, were the department heads discussed, was their input valued in this process? And two, specifically about the part-time employees who worked as essential workers, did the department heads have any input on that if they were talked to?
I've not heard from any department heads about part-time essential workers, no. I did hear from, yeah, I did hear from a lot of people that were supportive of the bonus and they liked the idea. You know, they were grateful that we were considering it. But I did not have a department head reach out and to me, I don't know about the rest of the council, and say, look, this group of part-time employees was essential and we had to have them. We think they should get a bonus. I think as these conversations have progressed with the council over the last month or so, probably 2 months actually, since September, right? I think when we maybe first started talking about this. But I think during that time, there was very little talk about part-time employees. It was brought up from time to time, but I think the focus has always been full-time employees and what the cutoff would look like for eligible full-time employees.
And I guess the reasoning is the part-time employees were in the potential recommendation from the Budget Committee as a 5%, and it was reduced to 4%, but they're not in on the portion of the budget. I understand that this is 2021 and that was 2022, but those conversations were happening simultaneously in the budget meetings that were anyhow. So that was just, like I said I would ask the question. I do think the bonus is a good morale builder, and with the condition that we have, or some of them say they could go to White Castles and make more, so a bonus is appreciative. I haven't had anybody say they didn't want a bonus. I want to clarify that, but they were just asking about the part-time people who had worked as essential. I just didn't know the answer.
Any other thoughts, questions, comments?
So to move forward, we have to make a motion on this verbiage, correct? Is that the motion?
Yeah, I think
I know
that,
what
I think that could be, I think a motion could be structured.
Based on this?
I think a motion could be structured this way, yes.
Okay. I agree on the part-time. I had heard the same question. The essential employees, the people that were here during COVID, when other people were working from home or working from wherever they posted on Facebook. But I don't know how to, I think within, my own personal opinion, within certain departments, you're going to pick and choose who gets that bonus and who doesn't. That's my own personal opinion. We could go back further, but I don't know really what that proves. I would be, if I was going to make a motion, which I guess I will, make a motion to amend the 2021 salary ordinance for general employees and merit officers. Is that right?
I think,
Or are we just making a motion on the verbiage part of it?
I think maybe what we need to discuss now is what, we need to agree upon what the amendment will be when we go to amend the 2021 salary ordinances. So right now, this is just what the amendment, what we want the amendment to look like. And then we'll move on to the 2022 salary ordinances, then we'd move on to the 2021 amendments based upon this amendment that's agreed upon here. That makes sense?
So we're just talking about the verbiage of this.
This would be agreed upon amendment to be made later in the 2021 salary ordinance amendments. Make sense? There's a couple parts here.
And, excuse me, and then just to clarify too, you want us to make the motion with these highlighted areas filled in with actual dates? Or just the verbiage itself without the specifics?
I think there has to be something, I'm not saying you have to use this. This is just a template
Yes.
for purposes of trying to make this as clear as possible, and I can see it's not getting there. But to make it as clear as possible, I think this is a template that you can use. You can make whatever language you want, but I think whatever that language looks like, we need to make sure that that language is what we want to use for the 2021 salary ordinance amendments at the bottom. So essentially, what you're discussing now and agreeing upon now is what will be at the bottom of the agenda for the 2021 amendments.
Clear.
Does everybody get that? Councilman Norris.
When will do we need to specify when this will be paid out on this amendment? Or do we
I mean,
do that
it's
down in the salary
it's
ordinances at the bottom?
Again, it's whatever. There's a template there, and it's whatever the council has an appetite for. I know how I would make a motion if I could make a motion. It's whatever you have an appetite for.
Write it down. Put over.
President Loudermilk, so as I'm looking through it, like, for example, I think that anyone who is employed by December 31st, 2020, if I'm thinking that's right, we go ahead and put that in there, through, I assume, a current date. And so really, at this point, we need to just fill in the blanks
You're wanting us
right
to
now.
fill in the highlighted
No, I
areas.
think it's,
to make the motion.
yeah.
Okay.
Or you can
Include
completely
the date.
scrap that and do
No, I
something that
think,
looks
I
like
think
this.
I think it's pretty straightforward. We just need to fill in the blanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
President Loudermilk,
Councilman Norris.
David, did you want to make the motion?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I make a motion.
Question? I can make it, go ahead.
I make a motion to amend the 2021 salary ordinance for general employees and merit officers, that if a full-time employee has been continuously employed by Vigo County from 12/31 of 2020 through 11/9 of 2021, the employee shall, in addition to the salary provided for the above, receive $1,500 compensation to be paid out by the next pay cycle.
No.
Can't do that? When is the next pay cycle? When is the next one?
So he paid out as determined.
So we don't have a date here.
So you could just say
So I
as
think if we
determined.
set a date that's a pay date, I think we have the latitude to do that. A pay date already determined by the commissioners. Am I right, Mr. Effner?
Right.
Yeah.
Which they've already done.
As I interpret the statute, the commissioners determine when employees are paid in Vigo County. That is, they determine the pay date, whether it's weekly or semi-monthly or monthly, and they make that determination. I think the council's determines what the pay is. I
What
would
the
think
amount
it would-
is.
I think you can make a recommendation, if you will, and say, or indicate that it should be paid by such a date. I think it's reasonable if that's a pay date. I think it should be easy enough to discuss it with between the council representative, the commissioners, determine what is a pay date where it can be reasonably done in that period of time.
It would probably, with, the timing involved and the work involved in it, it would be, it's not practical that it won't be done, that it'll be done before December. And I would recommend that it be a separate pay for,
So, Mr. Bramble, would you be okay with choosing 11/26 as the date with a separate pay designation? So it's right there at the December date?
well, we were talking about like December 3rd or so, we could probably get it out by then. But and that would be between two pay dates.
Okay.
One reason you don't want to put it all on one check is
Well,
because
the
they won't
taxes.
get very much of it.
Right, well, and that's what I was gonna ask
They were-
about, was I want
if
to
we run
avoid
a-
it
if
going
we-
in with
if we-
stipends or anything else that
yeah.
anybody else gets.
If you
for-
run it on a separate payroll, they'll be taxed less.
You can still pay out the same pay date, run it as a separate check. And the city does it every year. I mean, it's not impossible, so it's something that is possible to do. I mean, I wouldn't propose it being on the same check either, because it's going to get eaten up
Well,
with taxes.
no. If, I don't know how the city does it, but our tax regulations don't allow you to make that. They would look at it as the same paycheck on the same day. It doesn't matter whether you write one paycheck or 10. They're going to want that withholding for the total amount of that payroll.
That's odd, they haven't done it for 22 years, but that's fine.
Well,
Is there a date that you think that you could, Mr. Bramble, you think you could have this accomplished by, if we were to choose a date here?
What date were
December
we
3rd?
talking about? Yeah, I think that's the date we were talking about.
So it'd put you in between the two pay dates, the 26th and the 10th, does that sound right?
What date was she saying? Let me see. December 3rd, yeah, I think that's what we'd run it by.
Can it be done November 19th? Between now and next pay? Can it be done on the 19th, November? Between this pay and the next pay?
No, it's not
No
gonna
way.
get done. It's a job. I mean, it takes time to get it, to do this. So,
Okay, you want me to start over, or you just want me to finish with the
Yeah,
third?
why don't we start from the beginning?
Okay.
That way everything's clean.
I make the motion to amend to the 2021 salary ordinance for general employees and merit officers that if a full-time employee has been continuously employed by Vigo County from 12/31 of 2020 through 11/9 of 2021, the employee shall, in addition to the salary provided for above, receive $1,500 compensation to be paid out on 12/3 of 2021.
recommend, and then I'll go to the commissioners and have them formalize it.
As recommended to the commissioners.
As recommended. Good.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Norris, second, Councilwoman Thies. Any thoughts, comments? Councilman Thacker.
I understand the definition of a merit officer. The definition of a general employee, does that include elected officials who are work full-time?
No, elected officials have their own salary ordinance. So
Well, elected officials,
Just
you
wanted to
can't
clarify.
change, would be ineligible. As elected officials can't have a change in salary during the calendar year.
Okay, just wanted a clarification on it. Thank you. That's all.
Anyone else? Councilwoman Wilson?
Just want to clarify, what I understood here is that this motion is contingent on the commissioners requesting the same thing? I mean, it's by him adding that it was recommended and waiting for the commissioners to do something?
Executive law. The pay-
No, I don't believe that's the case. I think the date is what,
It's in question.
payout date.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
I'm sorry?
Marie, second.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Marie.
did, I said.
There you go. Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Thies,
Aye.
Ms. Sweger,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on. We now have the 2022 salary ordinances. First up, general employees. We had discussed that last week. As was noted last week, there was some amended language in there.
President Loudermilk,
Councilman Norris.
do we need to transfer, make a motion to transfer those funds for the bonus schedules?
Can we do that once, I mean, should that wait till we do the ordinance amendments? I mean, if the amendments don't go through at the end, it's irrelevant, right?
Right.
Or- What you say? I can't hear you. You can't. That's right.
Then what the motion was to amend the 2021 salary, of course.
Right.
So technically, that was. They did vote. So they don't have. Correct? Yes, that should. They can make, yeah, they can make amendment to this right here. So you can, when in his motion, he amended the salary ordinance language, so it covers it now. So now, you would need to do your, transfer resolution. And if you want to amend that to the numbers for the 483, want to reduce that amount, it's up to you.
475?
I don't have it calculated, I have it calculated on 480.
Is everyone clear on that?
You could, if you wanted to amend it, you could amend it to transfer $882,804 to payroll for $724,500, FICA for $55,425, and PERF for $102,879. It's on,
This that we've already, the actual figures of what we've already. Are you just amending the figures of what we've already allocated to be more precise?
well, you haven't allocated that yet, so I mean, you still have to approve that, resolution. resolution of transfer of funds. And so you can either approve it as it's written, or you can amend it to the reduced amounts.
Could you repeat those amounts?
Do you have this page right here? No. It's the very last column on the second table.
It is, okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
So it's the 724,500, 55,425, 102,879, for a total of 882,804.
As opposed to the 1,005,365 total on the
Right.
allocated amount that we already
Either,
approved.
yeah, we can either
Gotcha.
approve the full amount or the reduced amount of 483, which should still cover.
We've already.
Is everyone clear on where we're at? Yep. There a motion?
This is where I jumped ahead, correct? I'll let somebody else make the motion then. Okay.
Councilman Wilson?
I move that we approve the resolution of reallocation of existing appropriation 2021-19 with the exception of the following amounts of payroll being 724,500
To amend it?
to amend it to.
So you want to amend it first, and then if the amendment is accepted, then you have to approve.
Okay.
So it would be amended to that, the amounts in that last column. So
Yes.
the total amount,
The payroll of 724,500, FICA amended to 55,425, PERF to 102,879 for a total of 882,804.
so that is the amended language proposal. There's a second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Thompson. Motion on the floor and a second. Questions or comments?
So we're amending the resolution, but we made a motion for the resolution first. Before you can amend a motion, you have to have a motion.
No, I'm amending the appropriation amounts. Just this was a motion
You can't
to
amend something until you have a main motion on the floor. Under parliamentary procedure, you have to have a motion on the floor, then that motion can be amended, then you vote on the amendment, then you vote on the motion as amended if it passed. Mr. Counsel,
That's what I started to do.
the resolution hasn't been made, nobody's made a motion on the resolution is what I'm saying.
I started to do it, thank you, amendment first.
I understand that, but every other motion, every other resolution that we had tonight, somebody made a motion to accept the resolution, correct? Yeah, that's right, but you have to make that motion first under parliamentary procedure. I have a sheet here for everybody if they would like one. It's a,
Okay, I'd like to withdraw my motion. I want to reiterate my motion. I make a
Motion withdrawn.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
it's been
I make a
seconded, you
motion-
can't withdraw a motion once it's been seconded. I'm just telling you guys that there's a Robert's Rules of Order on this, and we have to follow it to be a government municipality. So if you want to if it wants to start out, we have to vote down the motion first, then you have to have a motion to accept the resolution as presented, then somebody amends the dollar amounts on it. Then you accept the amendment of the motion, then you vote on the total motion. On what basis? Once there's a motion.
Microphone.
I would challenge the parliamentary procedure on this. And that's what I'm saying is, that's what we're here for. And so every other one, when we got to the motion for the first resolution tonight, for final resolution And we made a motion for that. It was seconded. We voted on, we discussed it. At any time somebody wanted to amend it, they would do it at that time. You can amend something first, then make a motion, then vote on the motion as amended. It's just a parliamentary procedure.
Well, in the years I've done it with the city council and the county council, we've always had the opportunity to amend. It's something that's, it's presented to the council in the form of a resolution. That's before the council.
It's on the agenda, yes.
Yeah.
Duly amended, duly presented as a motion on there, but it has to be made, somebody has to make a motion, because if we go on there, just because it's on this agenda, and nobody makes a motion and nobody seconds it, nothing happens.
I agree.
Okay, so then
but
once.
you can, at least in my opinion, you can
Okay.
make a motion to amend to that.
And
if nobody wants to amend it, it can be voted down. And then you can make either make a motion to adopt the amended resolution if it's accepted, or you can make a motion, if it's not accepted, you can make a motion to adopt as originally presented.
If it's not done properly, then it doesn't happen. And that's all I'm trying to do is, if you guys want to do it, we need to do it right. So that's all I'm going to say on it, so then you guys can do how you want it.
So we have an amendment, motion with amendment on the floor. As Mr. Effner has stated, this is how it's always been done. So I'd venture to say we've done it this way since you've been on this council, Councilman Thacker, and there's not been an issue brought before, so a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions from council? Ask for roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Nay.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Thies,
Aye.
Ms. Weger, Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Now we have the amended language. We must vote on the new
Amazon has
language. So I entertain a motion to vote on the amended language,
So moved.
the resolution as amended. So a motion to approve by Councilman Wilson. A second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Thompson. No discussion. I'd ask for roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
I want to restate that under parliamentary procedure, this is out of order, and I vote nay.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Thies,
Aye.
Ms. Weger, Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Moving on. 2022 salary ordinances,
Mr.
general
President.
employees.
Mr. President,
Yes.
would you indicate the result of the vote?
Yes, motion carries. Moving on, salary ordinances for 2022. First up, general employees. You should have a handout there with information. Again, there's highlighted information in there. And there's also highlighted information within the language of the packet, as well as tables towards the back. Off this time for discussion about the general employees 2022 salary ordinance. Councilman Wilson.
I'm going to now state my question for clarification on item E. The attached job classification and compensation maintenance system is hereby adopted. All county council adopted job descriptions having a job requirement that states quote, possession of a valid Indiana driver's license and a demonstrated safe driving record shall be amended to state, quote, possession of a valid driver's license and a demonstrated safe driving record. Am I safe to assume that that verbiage was changed because not all county employees live in Indiana?
Correct,
Is that why that is?
yes.
Any other discussion about the jail employee salary ordinance?
I have another question.
Yes, Councilman
There's
Wilson.
a couple of other issues here.
Sure.
We discussed last week with Deputy Prosecutor Rob Roberts that he would prefer, and I would suggest that we remove the legal secretary under the prosecutor's department. I can't tell you what page that's on, but it's highlighted. About 2/3 of the way back, I suppose. And on the, let's see, second, nope, wait a minute. Where did we add in? Yes, on the very last page, I would like to discuss amending the deputy special prosecutor to include 2 rather than 1 deputy prosecutor. So I would like to suggest that we eliminate the legal secretary and add 2 deputy prosecutors instead of just 1. Okay. I would like to, okay. I'm going to propose that this be amended. I'm going to make a motion that we accept it with an amendment. Do I make the amendment first, or do I make the motion with the amendment included within the motion?
How many amendments are you like? That's the next question.
3 total.
So everything else is fine? Well, but I will say there's other things that are not, that have not been addressed. We need to make sure that we address those as well, the changes.
The what, the what?
There are, if you're okay with the changes in the language of the document, which, you know, it's the 4% over the 2021 rates, where they've just been changed from 21 to 22. It looks like on page 3, we need to make sure that we look at section M, which is, this is new to, it's a new addition to the salary ordinance. And then there's some more up through there. And then you start in R and S, and it's about clothing allowance and stipends, that we need to make sure that you're good on those. Because the stipends do not have any parameters on how that's to be paid. So we need to address that. And then you get into, that's in
In the body
the
of
body of the salary ordinance.
Okay, I apologize, I didn't notice the date that was Xed out, that needed to be filled in.
Yeah, so I mean, there are some other ones,
It's in
and
bright red.
maybe things that need to be reviewed.
So if we were, when we fill in the blank, so to speak, or change those X's to actual amounts, is that not considered an amendment that we need to, do we need?
It would be.
So-
But, I mean, it may be advisable to do amendments in blocks instead of trying to get them all in one.
So we need to vote on each amendment separately?
The ones where it's been updated, those I don't think it's necessary. When you get into, it needs to be clear that you're okay with clothing allowance and then discussion on stipends to make sure that's clear. As was discussed last week, there are no parameters on that. So those need to be defined.
Okay.
I don't think we discussed it.
We didn't even discuss it, I don't think, last week, so that needs to be discussed.
But I feel like instead of trying to make one big motion to make
Right.
adjustments and
Right.
include everything, you may have differences of opinions where it might be easier to break it up in chunks.
May I ask a question about the clothing stipend, President Loudermilk?
Absolutely.
Have we done these before, like in the past, clothing stipends? I felt like we had. What were the parameters when we did them before? Just,
The clothing stipend gets paid out twice a year.
twice a year, and is there any, because when I'm looking at it, it says to be eligible, and that's what I understood, that it had been in existence before. So must have continuous service for, I'm looking, 6
Yeah.
months, and that's what I was thinking, it was every 6 months, and then if they're not there for the first 6 months, they just don't get that part of it. Is that kind of what I gathered? So paid out 2 times a year.
President Loudermilk.
6 months.
The amount has changed from, you're suggesting a different amount than
Yeah.
what was paid in the past.
But other than that, we can do similar parameters. That's why I want to verify like what the parameters were.
I was just waiting, Brenda, Councilman Wilson asked a question if she should make an amendment first, and all I would say is, when we did the Budget Committee, the recommendation, we had a main motion on the floor first. And once we have a main motion on that floor, then it can be amended, to Calissa's point. So I would ask that, that's what I was trying to get across on the ordinances. If you have an ordinance that's a main motion, then you can amend the motion, then it's vote on it as amended. So I would suggest, you don't have to do, evidently, we can do whatever we want here, but if you want to follow parliamentary procedure, I would suggest that they make a main motion of that with general salary ordinance, and then from that, then we do the fine details on it.
Okay. I think I'll follow the advice of our attorney, but thank you. Yeah. That's what he's here for.
That is the advice he gave us during the Budget Committee, that we make a motion for the budget, then if you didn't like a part of the budget, you amend it. That was the recommendation he made, and that's the reference I used. It's recorded. It was not the budget. The budget, when we were discussing the Budget Committee, and I made a motion to adopt the recommendation of the Budget Committee as the main motion, then you said it couldn't be amended. So, it's recorded, so.
Councilman Wilson?
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we we adopt the ordinance with the following amendments. The adoption for the salary schedule and compensation policies, the following amendments. Number S, or letter S, all full-time correctional officers employed by the Vigo County Jail and full-time dispatchers employed by E911 are eligible to receive a stipend of $1,500 in order to aid in the, I'm sorry, this is highlighted in red, so it's really hard to read, to aid in the attraction and retention of employees. To be eligible for the stipend, an employee must have continuous service for 6 months as of January 1st, 2022. The stipend shall be paid out as $750 2 times per year, June 30th and, or thereabouts, and December 31st, thereabouts. The additional amendment would be under the prosecutor's office. I amend that we remove the legal secretary, non-exempt legal secretary, comment C, about 2/3 of the way back, and it's highlighted as well. I would also move or amend that we remove the assistant chief deputy from the auditor's request, or not request, the actual line item here, because protocol required that he submit a Form 1 budget official request that we never received, so that should not be honored as a request. And the prosecutor, on the very last page, we should increase the special deputy prosecutor to 2 from 1. That's the motion.
So the language in subsection S, the only, as you see the type in red, the months of, you're saying June 30th or
Thereabouts would.
or thereabouts, and December 31st or thereabouts for the payouts. And then remove the, I believe it was legal secretary
Yes.
request from the prosecutor's office.
Yes.
And that's highlighted. And then it's like second to last page. Remove the
Third to last.
chief, assistant chief deputy position from the auditor's office. And then the next page, an addition to the prosecutor's office for deputy prosecutor.
Yes.
So that is a motion. Is there a second?
I will second.
Motion on the floor and a second. Any questions or comments?
I have a question, Mr. President.
Yes. Councilman, please.
Just for kind of trying to figure out the process, as proposed by Councilwoman Wilson, under the auditor's office, what is the process if that were not to get approved, that they could get a request for that in the future? Would that have to go through the study, or is that something that you can bring forth, or how does that work? Can we allocate that in the future, like in the upcoming months, or do we have to wait till budget again next year?
I would assume, according to the rules that we followed in the past, it would die for a year. Would that be right, Mr. Effner?
Question, I believe. If it's a different motion, I mean, if it's not the same motion, that you can come back and do it. So you've made a motion to approve what's before the council with these amendments. So I think that's a motion. If it is defeated, I think a similar motion could come back as long as it's changed in some.
But if it passed, it passes and it's eliminated for a year. Same with the prosecutor and their legal secretary, it's eliminated for a year. Correct?
We're talking about a salary ordinance.
Mhm.
Salary ordinance,
It can be amended then.
our rules only specify if it's defeated, that it cannot come back.
Okay, so if my motion with those amendments passes, and that eliminates the legal secretary and the auditor's position, it can't come back for a year, or can it come back within the next year? I'm asking, attorney, please.
Okay, you're eliminating positions, and that's the way it's before. You know, this is, interesting.
I think regardless, if it was brought again, the council could agree to hear it.
Deal with it
You
again
could,
at the time.
you can always suspend the rule. That,
I just want to make sure that if a department needs additional help and they come to us, whether it be, you know, the prosecutor's office that we cut that, or, you know, the auditor's office, that they're able to propose that in the later year. Again, having just gone through the process just for the first year of it, you know, I've seen other people obviously come for additional cost and appropriations. I'm just asking what the process is if they end up needing someone else in the future.
let me take a look at that.
And as you pointed out, Marie, it could possibly come back when we do the employee evaluation. It could come back that they say, this office needs another employee. That could be a recommendation that comes back from the review. I'm assuming that we deal with it then.
Your rule reads, Rule 10, reads, any ordinance or resolution receiving a majority of votes in opposition shall be considered defeated and is precluded for consideration for 12 months. What you're proposing, though, is not something to be defeated. You're proposing a motion that, you know, if it's approved, then
It is.
there's no prohibition from bringing it back.
Right.
Okay?
Any other questions or comments from council?
I have one. According to the document that we're given here, the general salary ordinance, there's a lot of things that have been left out that were highlighted that are different than last year's ordinance. And if this motion is made, she made it as a motion to amend, but it's really, she's making a motion.
She's
I made
making a
the-
motion with amendments, as I
I made the
Yes,
motion
that's-
to approve with the following amendments only.
So the other things in here, that's what I'm asking for clarification.
The other things
So
are
the other
fine.
things in here about the stipends and the sheriff, that those are gonna stay. Okay, that's all I was asking for is clarification.
Yeah.
So that's
Everything
your,
else is good.
that's your main motion.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Can we go back and paragraph this? If you're going to do 2 payouts, I think that maybe receive a maximum stipend or in total, because I don't want it to read as receive a stipend, then it's paid out every 6 months, then they might think they get 3,000.
I specified 750 two times a year.
Okay, well, I didn't catch that, so that's a stipend of 750.
2 times a year on or about approximately June 30th and December 31st. Whatever paid period is date is closest to those dates.
Let me ask you this, what if we set it up to be paid along the same time frame as clothing allowance? For the what? Jim, do you have any thoughts on? If we paid it out at the same time they did clothing allowance, if you want to do a stipend twice a year, because you
But
pay out
wouldn't that-
clothing allowance twice a year.
Wouldn't that be like the bonuses where it'd be eaten up more with taxes if we do it
We've
combined?
always put them on one check and they get
Right,
that, yeah.
but I mean,
put the stipend on with their clothes, that's probably the way to go, you know.
I was just thinking that maybe it would be easier to track if you, same date, I mean, I don't care, but I just wanted to be clear, because I don't know what dates you pay out clothing allowance.
I'm not sure what date they go on to. I
And
think
it,
it's,
well, and the other thing is that my thought is if you do continuous service as of December 31st, 2021, that maybe it should be continuous service for the 6 months prior. So that way, if somebody started in May, they would get it for December, but not. Does,
We have a second. Motion and a second. They add money to the meter, what are we doing?
One restroom, one drink.
Catheter sprawl.
Any other comments before we vote? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Nay.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Thies,
I want to make sure, I'm sorry, because I just stepped out. So we're looking at the motion with, as put forth by Councilwoman Wilson. Nay.
Ms. Swager, Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. So we have the amended language that carried. We must vote on that new language.
Those are all incorporated in the.
Still need to vote on.
We're doing merit office now.
and they
Is
did
that-
approve as amended.
Yeah, we voted on the ordinance as amended.
We already voted on it as amended,
We voted on the ordinance with amendment.
with amendments.
It was a main motion.
Okay?
She just didn't say it.
So that's passed.
Moving on, merit officers. You should have an attachment before you, highlighted language. Again, it's the same information we received last week. Any thoughts or questions? Councilman Thompson?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion approved by Councilman Thompson, second by Councilman Wilson. Comments, questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Thies,
Aye.
Ms. Swager, Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye, motion carries. Next, elected officials. Again, you have a packet with some highlighted information. It's a little bit more difficult to see. It's gray instead of the yellow. And it's the same information we had last week. Should also have, I think last week we were missing the table that had the salary ordinance attached for elected officials. I think it was lacking last week. Does everybody have that this week before you?
Yes.
Councilman Thompson.
On this sheet, I think we've discussed it before about the Harrison Township assessor. His 2022 compensation on here is $53,203. He makes $5,599 less than the other elected officials, the auditor, assessor, clerk, treasurer, recorder, and surveyor. Have we discussed that?
No.
I think we discussed it briefly.
Yes, we have. But it's no resolution.
In my opinion, he should be brought up to the same salary.
Give me to make a motion.
Yep. I will make a motion to approve the elected official salary ordinance with the following amendment. The Harrison Township assessor's salary for 2022 be moved from $53,203 to $58,802, an increase of $5,599.
Second.
So we have a motion on the floor from Councilman Thompson, a second from Councilwoman Wilson. Any questions?
Mr. President, I have a question. I see our assessor here, so I don't know if he needs to address it or someone else can. And again, just point of clarifying, does the Harrison Township assessor report to our assessor, or are they two completely separate entities?
Two entities.
They're separate.
Okay.
As far as is that fair, Kevin?
No, he's a
Does he
county
report to you?
representative, township.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, she was, thanks to that question, is more addressed to you.
Kevin with the County Assessor's Office. Harrison Township Assessor is an elected official, but he's a township assessor, so he's not truly a county employee. No, he does not report directly to me, but the differences in our jobs are everything that goes through the Harrison Township has to be reported to the DLGF in the state through my office, so through the county assessor. Everything to do with real and personal property that has to get submitted to the state is through my office. We have to submit all reports, all deadlines, all go through us. We're also responsible for the ratio study and the market adjustments that are performed every year. We're also responsible for the contracts that we receive for the county. We're also responsible for if an appeal goes to the state, that has to be handled through my office. Harrison does not handle them. We also support the PETA-BOA. We have to be a non-voting member on that board, so we have to be present at every meeting. We have to host those meetings. We have to schedule those meetings. So to say that we're both county assessors, or we're both assessors that perform the same job is not correct. I don't know if that answers your question.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Yes.
The chief deputy that was approved in the general employee salary ordinance is based off of the pay rate of the township assessor, which which, so I don't know if you have to go back and amend that or how that would work.
Is it not, is it not
Okay, the
automatic?
80% is per our local ordinance, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, I would think that it would have to go back and amend that in order to, so there's not a conflict. I assume that our local, so there's not a conflict with two ordinances that have been passed. So I think it's probably appropriate to reconsider and go back and amend that.
Amend the general employees.
Yes. So that it shows that, so it, in accord with this, if this is passed in that manner, and we're raising the Harrison Township assessors, that would then be in conflict with the prior general employees ordinance, which currently we have an ordinance that deputies be paid 80% of what the assessor is. So you don't want to have a conflict between the two ordinances.
So the appropriate thing to do would probably be vote on this first to see where it lands. If it prevails, go back and presumably amend the language in general employees
Yes,
to reflect change of elected official
yes,
salary.
yes.
Is that all? Is everyone clear on that? So we have a motion on the floor, second. Additional questions or comments before vote?
I just want to make one comment. In looking at this, and the salaries, the budget committee had made recommendations on a couple different things in regards to this, and so now, we're kind of going back and addressing those, and I want to make sure that we maybe look at the ones that we had addressed as needing to be addressed if we're doing this.
And on that, I would like to amend the motion. I'd like to amend the motion to the coroner to be the same pay, base pay as the,
There's a motion on the floor in a second.
yeah, I know, and then that's when you amend a motion, when there's a main motion.
That's incorrect. That is incorrect.
Now,
Mr.
no,
Attorney, please help him.
No, I wasn't saying before that you couldn't do it that way. What I was saying is that you could do it the way Brenda had
So we're going to do
stated
one at a
originally.
time.
So, that is a main motion that Brenda has made, and
David made this.
Mr. Thatcher can make a motion to amend that main motion.
And they have these on Amazon for like $7. I will pay out my pocket for everyone on the council to have one, if that would be.
You want to make a motion or you be a wisecracker?
Both. I have the floor, I believe. Thank you. So
You didn't ask for it. Yeah, you didn't ask for the floor.
I already did, and you granted it to me.
No, I did not.
Okay.
It's pretty typical.
What, you're not knowing parliamentary procedure?
No,
Yes,
you
that's
just
correct.
button in.
I said, I said I'd like to make a motion. You told me I couldn't make a motion. So I had to have the floor in order to make the motion.
You have a motion?
Yes, I have an amendment to the motion, which is a motion, and it requires a second. And I would like to amend that the coroner's pay be comparable to the auditor's, assessor, clerk, treasurer, and recorder at $58,802.
before you do that, if I might comment, are you doing that with knowledge that
Yes.
the pay that is established as a physician, she would get 50%?
Yes, yes, I am. Yeah, with the state statute. Correct, yeah. It's not gonna pass anyhow, so. It's not gonna pass anyhow, but that's why, that's my motion.
Hasn't been seconded. So I guess at this point, vote on Mr. Thacker's motion to amend.
And only the motion,
Sorry.
and only the motion to amend?
Is everyone clear what the motion is? So with that motion, Councilman Thacker, you're proposing corner go to 58,802,
Yes, that's base pay, yes, that's correct.
and then 50% more, is that correct?
According to the state statute, that is the state statute. We don't set that. We just set the base pay.
So additional $29,401 on top of that?
If it passes.
So essentially, my math is right, $88,203 for the corner.
Yes.
Is everyone clear? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Mr. Norris,
Nay.
Ms. Dees,
Aye.
Ms. Weger, Ms. Wilson,
Nay.
Mr. Thompson,
Nay.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Nay. Motion is defeated.
Now we gotta vote.
Can we vote on the motion now, if there's a second to it?
So can we revert back to the previous motion, correct? So everybody knows what the previous motion was. Motion is second on the floor. Everyone clear what that is? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Nay.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Dees,
Nay.
Ms. Weger, Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. So with that, let's revisit the general employees for purposes of the change in the Harrison Township assessor. Anyone clear why we need to do that? That's fine.
Okay, I make a motion that we amend the previously adopted ordinance for general employees to state that the Harrison Township Chief Deputy, due to the previous vote, their salary will increase 80% of the additional to the assessor of amount of $4,479.20, making her, or their, I keep saying her, their 2022 base rate $47,042.20.
Ms. Wilson, I think probably properly, we probably ought to make a motion to reconsider the ordinance that we previously passed and then seek to
rather than amend it, reconsider? Okay, then. Okay. Well, okay. All right, let's try this again. Excuse me, yes, I'll withdraw my motion to send. I would like to make a motion to reconsider the general employee salary ordinance. And to simplify it, I would like to say that the Harrison Township Chief Deputy's salary should be amended to $47,040, as similar to other chief deputies.
Okay, I think reconsider the motion.
And then make the-
Then bring it up on
Okay.
the
I just keep
table and then.
wanting to keep doing, okay. Make a motion to reconsider the general salary ordinance of general employees.
Motion to reconsider by Councilman Wilson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Thompson. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker? Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Ms. Thies?
Aye.
Ms. Swager? Ms. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk?
Aye. Motion to reconsider passes.
Okay, I keep wanting to try to eat this whole apple at one time. I'll cut it up into pieces. Now, I would like to make a motion to amend the previously adopted ordinance to state that the Harrison Township Chief Deputy's salary should increase to $47,040, commensurate with other chief deputies in that category.
So we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Wilson,
Second.
second by Councilman Thompson. Questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Ms. Thies?
Aye.
Ms. Swager? Ms. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk?
Aye. Motion carries.
Now you're gonna have to repass the ordinance as amended.
I move that we pass the ordinance for salary of general employees as amended.
For the 2022
For
salary.
the 22 salary, yes. Ordinance as amended.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Councilman Wilson, second by Councilman Thompson. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker? Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Ms. Thies?
Nay.
Ms. Swager? Ms. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk?
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on. 2021 salary ordinance amendments. General employees. So we had amended, we had language proposed earlier outlining the information regarding the employee bonuses. So now is the time to take care of that for the general employees and the merit officers.
Do these separately. Like to make a motion.
Wait, was that not previously,
I think they amended.
but adopted as a,
No, I don't.
I thought,
Point.
let me find it.
What's the question?
We were discussing whether those had been adopted as amended or just amended. I was thinking they were just amended.
They were just amended.
Speak, that's what, that was my concern of it, is we never had a motion and we were amending something that hadn't been, in my opinion, we couldn't amend it. So, yeah, we already did amend it, but there's not been a proper motion.
Okay.
That was my concern, no different than what we just did a little bit ago.
think at this point, you can make a motion to adopt as amended.
And I thought that was and that was laid out at the beginning, that was the discussion before we got to this.
Hashed out, it's gonna be paid, everything. Okay, I make a motion that we approve the amendment, or adopt the amendment to the salary ordinance for general employees and merit officers, whereas a full-time employee has been continuously employed by Vigo County from 12/31/2020 through 11/9/2021, the employee shall, in addition to the salary provided for above, receive $1,500 compensation to be paid out on December 3rd, 2021.
I believe we've already done it.
I thought we had.
Okay, what I'm saying is, we haven't adopted the ordinance as amended.
Yeah, we did.
Did we?
The salary employee, for general employees,
We're talking about for 2021. Right? Okay. My recollection was that we went through and we were discussing these for the purpose of amending it so we could determine what we were going to do in regard to the appropriation. But I don't recall that we actually adopted the salary ordinance for 2021 as amended.
okay, I move that we adopted it. I need to withdraw the motion I just made. So I'll withdraw the motion that I just made. And I move that we adopt the 2021 salary ordinance as amended. That-
Well, adopt
With regard to the,
whatever the ordinance was, that, yes, that's correct. Or- I take that. This was. Where is it? I stand corrected, Brenda.
okay,
I think, go ahead and make your motion to amend the salary ordinance. I would think, go ahead.
the way
Make
that
as
I
you
originally did it, okay. I make okay, do I need to withdraw what I just withdraw what I just said too. Okay, I make a motion that we adopt the amendment to the 2021 salary ordinance for general employees and merit officers, in that if a full-time employee has been continuously employed by Vigo County from 12/31/2020 through 11/9/2021, the employee shall, in addition to the salary provided for above, receive $1,500 compensation to be paid out on December 3rd, 2021. Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second on the floor. Is that for both the general employees and merit officers?
Yes. Paragraph T and paragraph.
Mr. President, just to clarify, then this is on the bonus for this year, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
2021.
just want to clarify. My head's whirling.
Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
I don't believe this is done properly, so I vote nay.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Thies,
Aye.
Ms. Swager, Mr. Wilson, Ms. Wilson, Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye, motion carries. Did you have anything further, Mr. Effner? Good. So, moving on, last week, we had discussion about the employee compensation plan, which is not on the agenda, but I'd like to add it at this time. So we had that discussion last week. We have individuals here that could speak on that, who are part of that group. I think I think it was clear the resounding support, as was presented last week, was for Baker Tilly. The funds have been appropriated for such a study. I think the only thing left to do is to make a motion on what vendor would conduct that study, allow us to move forward. I think if we don't do that tonight, that we're not likely going to see any action until February. And I think it was the goal of many to try to get this started during this calendar year. So with that said, I'd offer this time for discussion. Councilman Wilson.
I understand the feeling of needing to have a different company than what has been done before. I personally still have questions and qualms about using a company that the county also purchases bonds from. I feel like that creates a conflict of interest that will get us right back to where we were prior to even having an employee compensation firm evaluate. I feel like it needs to be a company that is 100% autonomous, totally having no previous or current relationship with the county. It's my personal opinion. Whether that be WIS or some other company, just not Baker Tilly, because they're so financially tied to the county.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns? Councilman Thacker.
I second that motion.
Motion on the floor by Councilman Thacker, second by Councilwoman Wager. Additional thoughts, concerns? And again, this is just for the vendor. We have funds already allocated for a vendor, and those funds should cover at this time what we need to have done.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Thies.
what I appreciate about the process that's been done, we've often said, we need to listen to our department heads. It seems like from the committee that was put together, the meeting that you put together, had quite a few of the department heads involved and other personnel involved that would be involved in the process. And so taking that recommendation, also the idea that we need, Councilwoman Wilson brings up the point, it's also a fresh set of eyes. It's a respected company. And I think they answered the questions that were addressed and from what I've heard. So I support it as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? A motion on the floor in a second. Ask for roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Thies,
Aye.
Ms. Swager,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Nay.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Honorary resolutions, there are none. Resolutions relating to fiscal policies of the council, there are none. There is one appointment. There was a vacancy on the Vigo County Public Library Board, and the appointment will be a Camille Wallace. So as of today, she will be appointed to the Vigo County Public Library Board to fulfill the remainder of the vacated term of that board member. That said, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any adjourned?